Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's meeting of Climate Change and Sustainability meeting. Can I start off by introducing the top table? On my far left, your far right-hand side, we have Councillor Liz Barrett, the Vice Convener. Next to Liz, we have Fraser Crofts, the Strategic Lead for Environment and Infrastructure. On my right-hand side, your far left, is Adam Taylor from Democratic Services. I will now ask Adam to confirm any apologies received and advise of the members in attendance on and online. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener. Morning, members. We have one apology this morning from Councillor Welsh, with Councillor McPherson substituting, and we have two members online. I'll just ask if they can hear us. Councillor Lang?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. And Councillor Kogali?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Thank you. All other members are present in the chambers.
Thank you, Adam. Can I ask anybody who wants to get my attention for questions or for comments, please use the chat box to do so. Councillor, yeah, can I just get a declaration of interest? What point do you want to come in, or when do you want to come in? Because can I do declaration of interest and then minutes, and then if there's something you would like to add, can we come in there? Is that okay? Right. Do we have any declarations of interest this morning? Can we agree the minutes for the meeting held on the 20th of August of this year? Thank you. Councillor Anderson, I'm going to let you come in. What would you like to? Sorry, I thought you wanted to come in just now to say something. Yeah, no problem at all with that. Thank you. Outstanding business statement. Can I ask if there are any questions on the outstanding business statement? Can we note the outstanding business statement and agree to remove the actions that are now complete? Just going to pass over very quickly to Fraser Croft regarding the paper that we decided to withdraw on the surface water management plan for Perth, and Fraser's just going to give a very brief update on that.
Thank you, Convener. A communication was issued to committee members and the wider public on Friday afternoon, advising that the Perth Surface Water Management Plan had been pulled from this committee cycle due to the feedback loop on the consultation exercise having not been fully completed. I would like to thank the residents who brought this to our attention, and I do indeed apologise for this. The contributions of residents who are most impacted by surface water flooding remain a vital part of the process, and we will ensure the online feedback session and question and answer feedback report are completed prior to the report being brought back to committee in 2026, following completion of the consultation exercise. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Fraser. For our first paper this afternoon, can I pass over to Grant? Grant, you have a comment, question?
Yeah, well, there's a comment on the pulling of the paper. Consultation is very important to us, obviously, at Perth and Kinross. We don't seem to do it very well. If I'll just look at the taxi consultation and others, is there any service or anything that we can put the consultations through so they can be checked they're complete before? It's embarrassing, I would think, for the council to have to pull a paper 5 days after it's been in the public domain, and then come with a reason that we hadn't assimilated all the information that we're asked the public to give into a paper that's gone through pre-agenda and has then been put out public. So I still don't understand how that happened, because there's balances and checks. So if we could, maybe if there's not going to be any further comment on it today, can we maybe get a more written response to the members of this committee of actually how this has happened, please.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Yes, we've picked up with our corporate comms manager the issue that we had appeared to be with regard to the consultation hub. So we're looking to review the process in terms of what happened in this occasion and make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. And can we also look at the responses so that we know that there's only one response coming from each resident, etc. Instead of, at the moment, it seems that we can have multiple responses and work with the IT team. We spend a lot of money on IT and AI. I'm sure there must be a way of limiting responses to one resident or one IP address.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I pass over for our first item 5 on the agenda? Can I pass over to Councillor Liz Barrett to take this paper? Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. The next paper is the Perth and Kinross Outdoor Access Forum Annual Report for 2024 to 25. And can I please ask Dave Stubbs, the Area Green Space Coordinator, to introduce the report? Thank you.
Green, perfect. We have in the past presented an annual report to the Economy and Infrastructure Committee on the work of the forum, and it was agreed last year that going forward this report would be presented to Climate Change and Sustainability. This report outlines the work undertaken by the Perth and Kinross Outdoor Access Forum over the last 12 months and recommends that 2 new members are appointed to the forum.
Thank you, Dave. Do members have any questions on the report? Councillor Anderson?
It's not mentioned in the report. I was just wondering what's happened to the change of the monies going to Sustrans. The Scottish Government reduced the money going to them and was going to be distributed through local authorities for, presumably they're suggested maybe for improvement of core path rights of ways, etc. How much of that money, it wasn't ring fenced, but how much of that money did come through to Perth and Ross, and where has the money been allocated?
I'm not sure. Do you have that information, Dave? Or
I don't, I'm afraid. No, that's not sat within the Community Green Space budget.
no, yeah. Michael Finlay, the different types of a lot of the funding. And I'm a bit worried that I might miss bits out, but there's a lot of the fund. Fraser, are you able to, or am I still? Yeah, right. Okay. Can I? There's funding that goes through Tier 1 and Tier 2 funding for the Scottish Government that comes out of the Scottish Government for active travel. But I don't know if that covers the paths. All the core path money or stuff like that, but the active travel. But a lot of the money from Sustrans is now coming directly. I think we get around 700,000 on Tier 1 funding, which will be spent on quite a number of projects through Perth and Kinross, and we do have applications that have went in for Tier 2 funding as well to help improve active travel throughout the area as well. I think the best thing here to do is to ask Michael Finlay to go back to him out with this committee and get him to give you a fuller answer to that and a more comprehensive answer to that funding. So if you're happy, we can do that, and we'll make sure that's passed to all the committee members so they can all see that. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Ling, you have a question?
Thanks, Vice Convener. Yep. I was wondering if in future we could maybe have some examples of the work that the Access Forum are doing, especially as when they report or residents report to them that there's rights of way blocked or fences put up or anything preventing access where it could rightfully be claimed. And it would be interesting if Dave could, Mr. Stubbs could give us a few examples of where our teams have managed to resolve issues that have cropped up.
There's a couple of questions in there. We've quite a throughput of obstruction cases where people report alleged obstructions to us, and we deal with them through an internal officer process. Where the forum are really useful is their breadth of experience and their local knowledge, both to help us resolve issues with land managers and also prioritise as to what's most important. We do have, quite a caseload. Examples off the top of my head, I'm struggling. In a typical example, we will write to a farmer, a landowner, and say this gate's locked and it shouldn't be. And the landowner will come back and say, oh, this was a temporary thing, or I'm sorry, it shouldn't be locked, it's now unlocked. And I'm thinking of a Kinross example just now. There's a locked gate, there's a kissing gate, horse riders, disabled people can't get through. We would offer a self-closing gate that everyone can get through, and then either we would install that with our budget or we would provide that to the farmer to install themselves. That would be a very typical example.
Thanks. Can I have just a follow-up there? So where would that be reported to, the number of cases that are brought forward by members of the public through the Access Forum team, or just by members of the public to Perth and Kinross officers? How many are brought forward and the percentage that are resolved and within the time frame that they're resolved? Is that possible to get that information?
I'm sure it is possible. We take a quarterly report to the Access Forum on one of their most active subgroup is the obstructions subgroup. So they have a subgroup meeting ahead of the quarterly meeting. We take a report to the forum on a quarterly basis. But yeah, but we don't. I don't have stats in front of me, but I'm sure we could provide stats for the case work and how things are resolved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stubbs. Deputy Provost Parrott, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much. Essentially, Councillor Laing has asked the substance of my question, which was to ask, what is the role of the forum in actually dealing with difficulties we have with access in the countryside, and to ask, much as he's asked, whether reports like this in the future can include detail of the forum's work, particularly in areas of difficulty of access, because I think we all think it's important that access to the countryside is maintained in accordance with the legislation. Thank you.
I think I could ask Mr. Stubbs to please bear that in mind when next year's report's being prepared. Thank you. If some stats and perhaps case studies would be very helpful. Thank you. Councillor Kigali, you have a question?
Yes, it's on those cases that are marked as closed as unresolved, whether we could just have a bit more detail on what that necessarily entails. Is it a failure to enforce, or is it the landowner's position being upheld? What do they actually mean in substance?
When cases are closed unresolved, we've followed our internal process. We've maybe written a second time, but we've not fully resolved the problem. We've effectively agreed to differ. The council does have enforcement powers, which ultimately end up in a notice and an appeal to the Sheriff Court. Like most local authorities, we don't go there lightly. It's very resource intensive. The forum's role, back to where I was before, are there to advise us, to help us resolve, but also this one's really important. Okay, we're happy for that one to be closed unresolved. It's not fully dealt with. It maybe will come back. In a typical example, with a less well used path, not a right of way, not a core path, we might put that to one side, and then we'll wait on further complaints or circumstances changing before picking it up again.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Vice Convener. I had a related question as well. And point 311 about the number of cases closed off and resolved, it seems to add up to about 50%. Would you say that's would you say that's a normal kind of percentage for being closed in a year, or is it above or below your expectations? Thanks.
I think that's about where we are, to be honest, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Stubbs. And I think the Councillor Grant Stewart.
Thank you, Vice Convener. This also sort of refers to section 311, but I'm wondering if we're thinking about best practice. Do you have any landowners that approach the forum to work with developing pathways and access?
Not a great deal. Landowners can do that kind of stuff off their own bat if they want to. Occasionally, a landowner will come to us because they want to divert a path, or again, I'm thinking not often, but you know, I've got these paths on my land. Can you help us waymark them? And that would be something that we would look to help with. Oops.
Sorry, Councillor Ling, we're not hearing you. Can you try again, please?
I never heard anything coming through from you, Convener. Vice Convener, sorry. That's the first of me being called to speak. It's concerning to say that you know, and it would be handy if you could give an idea how many cases we actually take to court. So, because we're in a public meeting here, and it seems that the answer is we'll write a couple of letters and hope, and then we might just agree to disagree and not take further action, which sort of invites people to disregard the requests to reopen areas that they may have closed off intentionally. So can you just give me an idea how often we have to go to court to do something? I'm thinking about especially the path that the cycleway we were hoping to get in Stanley, between Stanley and Lunkery, which has been ongoing for about 10 years now. And so just if you could give me some update on either that path or how often we take things to the end, the conclusion.
We don't go to court lightly. We don't go to court often. Haven't gone to court with one of these for several years. I think there's a little bit of not a misunderstanding, but the intention is not to take landowners to court. The intention is not to end up in dispute. The intention is to try and resolve these things within the law and to find an agreeable solution. I think there is a misunderstanding, is the wrong word, but it isn't just a road that leads inevitably to enforcement action and court action. I could keep our legal services colleagues full-time busy were that the case, and obviously the council has other priorities. Stanley Lunkerty has been a long time coming, but I think that if we can get there with that one, it will be through path agreement rather than enforcement action or any of these other options.
Thank you, Mr.
I just worry that 50% of unresolved cases is quite high.
Oh, I think it is what it is, but I think we've got the message on that. Thank you, and my apologies that I wasn't using the mic properly earlier. Thank you. If there are no other questions, I'll move. Oh, sorry, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I suppose first I'm a member of the Access Forum and Obstructions Subcommittee, and the one problem we have is that we get quite a lot of repeat offenders each year that come back. We write an LM1 letter to them to say to remove the padlock, get people past. They do that. Next year, they're thinking things back on again. And there's no penalties for them, repeat offences. It's really, I suppose, it's the powers were not given by the Scottish Government to the access to the bill anyway, that there's no powers, again, to say involving landowners and things if they particularly don't agree to solutions. They cannot be fined. There's no powers within the Act that they will be fined for the repeat occurrences of breaches of access. Well, it's really just whether we write to, that's to say we're 50% sorted out, around about 50%, but the repeat offenders, there's no penalties against them. And we write to the Scottish Government if they could ask for powers for local access forums to take, they can be fined, people who do breach it. These things, I mean, the first time, let them off, parking fine, everything else. But if they do repeat it, they can be given money to resources back into the council to improve paths and everything else. But at present, we have no powers, and the council doesn't like to go to the legal work because that costs a lot of money. And we're very reluctant, as Dave said, to go to the lawyers and take cases because of the budgetary constraints. But I think if we could write to the Scottish Office, they could be forthcoming with where we could repeat fines and we could fine people for repeat offences and everything else. Thank you.
My understanding is that we've asked for the outdoor access code to be reviewed, but I can check that. Thank you. If there are no other questions, I'll move the report. We know that outdoor access to our wonderful countryside in Perth and Kinross is very important to the health and well-being of locals and our visitors alike, and to the wider economy of the area. Those taking access do need to do so responsibly, and land managers need to act reasonably and respect the needs of access takers. The Council very much appreciates the commitment and work undertaken by Perth and Kinross Outdoor Access Forum and the advice provided to us to achieve a balance of rights and responsibilities on either side. I'm pleased to confirm the membership changes proposed and to support any efforts to identify new members from agencies and other bodies to fill the current vacancies. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank retiring member Mary Conacher for her contribution over the last 21 years, especially in relation to access on the water. I'm happy to accept the recommendations in the report, and I move the paper for approval. And can I ask the convener to second, please?
Thank you, Vice Convener. Yes, happy to formally second this report coming forward.
Thank you, Convener. Do members have any comments on the report not already made? Councillor Laing.
Thanks, Vice Convener. Yeah, I'd just like to second your thanks to the people who have served previously and continue to serve, and new people who are coming on to serve. I think it is a really useful organisation, and we have a lot of pathways across Perth and Kinross, which many people enjoy. So I'd like to pass my thanks on to them for the work and hope they continue to do the good work. I would like to comment on, I think we need a larger, it's good to hear we might get some case studies and that, because it's such an important piece of work to get a 15-second introduction to the report seems slightly unsatisfactory. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laing. If there's no amendment, can I ask if we can agree the recommendations in the report? Thank you, and I'll pass back to the convener.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Okay. Can I ask Stuart McLaren, Climate Change and Energy Officer, to introduce the annual update on the delivery plan 24 to 29 for Perth and Kinross local heat and energy efficiency strategy and our local area energy plan. Over to you, Stuart and Vivendi. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. This report seeks to note the progress in implementing the delivery plan for the local heat and energy efficiency strategy, which is the LHES. and the Local Area Energy Plan, which we refer to as the LEAP, approved at the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee in 2023 and to approve the priorities for the next 12 months. Both the LHEs and the LEAP are firmly aligned to the priorities and vision of the corporate plan for a Perth and Kinross where everyone can live well, free from poverty and inequality. They reflect the views of our communities, elected members, stakeholders and partner organisations. Actions are being implemented through the Council's LHEs and LEAP coordination team and the LHEs and LEAP delivery groups and by operational teams also. Both continue to build on the strong partnerships already in place, recognising that achieving the LHEs and LEAP priorities will require a collective effort from delivery partners, stakeholders, communities and the residents of Perth and Kinross. The annual report provides a summary of the progress made over the last 12 months and outlines the key strategic priorities for the next 12 months. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions? Noah?
This is probably better directed at you as the convener, but the report explicitly refers to delays in Scottish Government policy, and I was just wondering what engagement you've had with your SNP colleagues in the Scottish Government about that.
I haven't had anything, but officers are in discussions on a continual basis, and I will pass over to Stuart to discuss what discussions have gone on, or Davinder.
So we've been involved on an officer level, we've been involved in discussions with the Scottish Government on a number of levels. So there's an LHEs officers forum for officers involved in working with this, in which there's Scottish Government representatives, in which we flag various issues that we have in terms of delivering them, and they get fed back up. Similarly, as part of the Sustainable Scotland Network, there's representatives from the energy team from the Scottish Government who come and we similarly flag our issues there. And then I believe it's also potentially been raised at COSLA as well.
Thank you, Davinder. Councillor Grant-Lane.
Thanks, convener. It's about the Strategic Energy Partnership. I was wondering if there's any political involvement in that partnership. To me, it looks as though it's outside agencies and senior officers. So that's the first question. But the second question is, why has it been delayed again? We were at a meeting, we were told that we would announce a strategic energy partner in August this year, and I see now it's getting pushed back to September 2026. So I was just wondering where the delay has gone, and if you'd been, or MD had been fed information as to why something that was promised actually at a meeting with the Chief Executive about 8 months ago has changed to be coming forward a year later. And are we satisfied that the deadline in 2026 we will finally announce our strategic energy partner?
Sergio, could you come in and answer this one?
Yes, good morning, and convener, and thank you for your question, Councillor Lane. In relation to the first question, the political involvement in the Strategic Energy Partnership, in terms of the setup and the partners in the partnership, obviously it's the council and potentially obviously private partners. On the daily basis, it's an officer relationship in terms of the partnership, but obviously the strategic direction of the partnership will be given by elected members from a council point of view, and at the moment is sitting with the Economy and Infrastructure Committee, so that will be the overseeing and strategic directions coming from that committee, or for the full council if it's agreed to do it in that way. In relation to the timescale of developing the Strategic Energy Partnership, I mean, you're right in the sense that the deadline has moved, but the reason for that is that it is a very complex process. We've been very active in terms of identifying the right route to identify the partner, and the procurement route to do that, which is the competitive dialogue. It's effectively different stages process which require more time in terms of it's effectively you're selecting 2 or 3 partners, you're doing a dialogue, and you're going to another 2, and you're doing a dialogue, and you end up with the one, and you have a further dialogue, which means that obviously it's taking more time, it's more complex. We've never done that before as a council, so we've been very careful to take the right advice, legal and procurement advice internally and externally to make sure that we do it correctly, because it is the intention is to have a partner for 20 years. We have to get it right, and we only, I think, have only one opportunity to do it. So that's why we are taking more time. I know it's longer than expected, but I think it's maybe better to get it right than to rush into it and to get it wrong either. We think there's a window of opportunities now in the next 8 to 10 months to do that process and to complete that process as indicated in the report by summer 26.
Okay, thanks. Can I have a follow-up, Convener, please?
Please go ahead.
Thanks for that answer, Serge. And hopefully we can get to that point next summer. I think, though, that part of the strategic, there's no point in bringing political input in at the end of the process. If they're senior officers and outside agents involved in something, if it's a strategic element, the elected members are meant to drive strategy. We're often told by officers that things that are operational, we don't get involved in. We only get involved with strategy. This is named a strategic partnership. So I would like you to rethink maybe the constituent members of that Strategic Energy Partnership Forum group. And would that be possible?
Thank you for your question, Kirsten. So I've not been clear enough maybe in my answer. We are briefing obviously elected members as we go in terms of, for example, the conveners, of the E&I committee, or even the conveners obviously of this committee. The question will be in relation to setting up the strategic direction. So effectively the strategic directions have been already set up by the council, and particularly this committee through the local area energy plan and the LIS, which is the topic of this report. It gives you effectively the strategic framework there. But I take your point in terms of involving elected members as we go, and we will think of a mechanism in terms of the governance arrangement for the strategic energy partnership, but how effective the elected members, have the right full place.
Thank you, Serge. Councillor Grant Stewart.
Thank you, Convener. In the report, we saw partnership building and strategies and processes have been discussed. I was wondering how far we are away from actually seeing some tangible heat networks being developed in Perth and Kinross. Particularly, I'm thinking in rural areas where we've got high power lines coming through Perth and Kinross, battery storage, solar farms, wind farms. So essentially, how far are we away from actually seeing something happening in our rural areas, thinking that in many of the towns, villages and hamlets that we've got an older housing stock?
Davindy, you're going to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take at least the first part. Grant Key might want to come in as well. So as part of our LHEs, we designated sort of 5 core areas that had the sort of required commercial density to make a heat network sort of commercially viable in the sort of traditional sense. Of those, the 2 that we've been primarily progressing are Perth, which is dependent on the Strategic Energy Partnership procurement, but probably the earliest we'd see something is sort of 2027, 2028, but it could be longer than that depending on the partner. Independently but supported by the council, you may have seen Ketch and Kinross was referenced, and we've been working closely with them to sort of help facilitate their sort of leading on a heat network. So that's ongoing. The other thing that the council's looking at is a sort of a very innovative approach of looking at very sort of small scale rural heat networks. So this is a piece of work that just had funding approved at FNR at the start of October. But this is to do feasibility at 8 sites where the council has non-domestic assets, so a school or something like that, in close proximity to social housing, and just to see whether there's efficiencies across doing a localized piece of work where the council would have to be investing quite a bit in retrofit anyway to these properties, whether we could get savings for that. And the feasibility for studies for those is sort of starting imminently.
Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, made reference to Catch in the paper. So is that model could be transferable throughout the whole of Perth and Kinross?
Something that I think if Catch sort of are successful, it's something that could definitely be transferable. There's a couple different support mechanisms. So this year, the council's delivered the Scalable Cities project, which is around helping community groups develop community energy projects, which a heat network would be one of them. Also this year, Climate Connect has launched, which is the Scottish Government funded climate hub, which is focused on community groups supporting community groups. And they have an energy strand led by the Heat Project in Blair Gowrie, but they're working on sort of coordinating and facilitating peer-to-peer learning. And then there's other organizations such as Community Energy Scotland, which are also trying to facilitate this knowledge. So I think we need to see if it's successful, but in other places, community groups have successfully launched heat networks. So it could be something we scale up.
Thank you, Davinder. Ken?
Thank you, Convener. Excuse me. Thank you, Convener. It's related question to Councillor Stewart. So I noticed point 516 in the risk register, you discuss external consultants. I'm kind of assuming these because you don't have the capacity in-house. My first question is, as this is inevitably going to grow, is it be worth finding somebody to do this kind of work in-house? And secondly, a more general question, the type of issue that Councillor Stewart discusses, is that the kind of thing the external consultants assist you with, or is it more technical related matters and such like? Thanks.
Cindy.
So the external consultant challenge and whether we bring more in-house is something that officers are actively engaged in discussing at the moment. And as part of the Strategic Energy Partner, how much we can do in-house so we can be a smart client. And then in terms of what the consultants have been advising us, it has been primarily technical, so doing the detailed modeling for a heat network. But as Serge mentioned earlier, the procurement of a strategic energy partner is something that the council's never done and very few councils have done. So we've been bringing in sort of legal expertise and procurement expertise just to make sure we deliver.
No, that's fine. That's exactly what I wasn't a leading question at all, and I might even apply for that job myself. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. Grant Lane.
Question. Thanks, Convener. It's just I know there's an immense amount of work being done, and the officers are doing a great deal of work. But when I look through all the different strategies, reports, where they are, etc., there's a lot of work being done, and I was wondering if perhaps we should maybe focus on 2 or 3 that we can actually deliver in the short to medium term. You know, we're talking about bus transport, rail transport, EV charging. There's a plethora of things in this report, but I think maybe I'm just impatient, and maybe residents are impatient. If we could actually see something coming forward. I was just wondering when we'll actually see stuff on the ground that's going to benefit the residents of Perth and Kinross. I know all the background work has to be done first, but are we going to focus on something? A lot of these areas that are in green mean that a report's been finished, or a report, somebody's been appointed in a position, but there doesn't seem to be much end game. Could you give some examples of where we've driven something forward and there's actually a benefit on the ground?
I think there's a few that are getting pretty close, but you'll answer that, Davinder.
So in terms of seeing things happening on the ground, in addition to all of the strategic work that's going on, there is quite a bit of real work that's happening alongside it. So the work that Nicole Lennon and her team are doing to upgrade social housing, they've made a huge impact in all of those tenants' lives whose homes have been improved. This year, I mean, the home energy advice that we fund provided by SCARF reaches over 1,000 residents or 1,000 households every year. This year, we've taken a more concrete approach where we've funded SCARF to be delivering targeted Eco4 support. So these are residents who are probably at greatest risk of being at fuel poverty and are vulnerable in some way. And these are properties that will have, by making improvements to them, will have the biggest both cost of living and sort of climate change impact. So those are a few sort of smaller things we're doing. I agree we do need to be making sure we're sort of delivering on some of these big pieces of work, but they take time, and pieces around the heat network, anywhere where it's done. It is a sort of multi-year process. You can't sort of snap your fingers and it can be delivered in 6 months within our sort of planning framework, governance framework, etc. But we are, but I think that's where some of the priorities highlighted in here are what we're hoping to focus on next year. And there are several teams across the council all focused on sort of delivering these pieces. Yeah, there's sort of dozens upon dozens of officers involved.
Thank you, Davinder. Andrew, your question.
Yes, thank you, Raj. I'm at paragraph 6.7 of the report, the non-domestic improvements, where it says that over the last year, the PKC non-domestic stock has seen an overall 5% decrease in energy consumption, and there's also been a reduction in the carbon emissions. Presumably the carbon emissions result not so much from our own actions as from the mix of the energy that we're using from the suppliers. But would I be right in thinking that that 5% decrease in energy consumption arises from the impact on our estate of Riverside Primary School, which now has much reduced energy consumption? And are we going to be in a position to look forward next year to a further reduction as a result of the new high school coming on stream? Thank you.
Grant Key.
Morning, Councillor. I can answer that question. Yeah, we are looking forward to further savings next year. We are kind of obviously manage our energy quite well. The 5% reductions through energy management and projects we've undertaken within the estate. Octagon Primary School being one where we've reduced energy consumption there by 49% by moving from oil to an air source heat pump solution. So we have made some quite significant gains in a number of different areas. The carbon emissions side of things, the grid conversion factors remained kind of stagnant last year. That's why there's not such a movement in our emissions reduction. And going forward into next year, we could see that's actually a change in pattern. So the electricity for the first time, the conversion factors will be lower than gas. So that's going to make an improvement on our emissions, and we'll continue to carry on our energy reduction measures. So we should see some more positive results next year.
Thanks, Grant. Grant Stewart, you have a question?
Thank you, Convener. In the opening address, Ms McLaren talked about living life well free from poverty and equality, and it relates to Appendix 2, page 1 at the bottom. There's the percentage of households in fuel poverty has risen from 32 to 35%. I'm taking that due to the cost of living and the cost of fuel rising. And the second part of that question is, I take it from the, if it wasn't for the actions of Perth and Kinross, that figure could have been higher, especially when we were looking last couple of weeks ago at full council about child poverty.
Davindy.
So with the fuel poverty figure, I would say it's not necessarily the current data we have isn't the most accurate, because the data right now, there hasn't been a baseline data for Perth and Kinross since 2019. And since then, they've been extrapolating the Perth and Kinross data based on sort of national trends. So some of the sort of the localized energy improvements and individual residents won't necessarily be reflected. It's something that we have been flagging as an issue that we'd really like better fuel poverty data. But so yeah, the rise that we are seeing is due to the national trends, and the local picture may be different than what's presented, but it's the best data we have. So that's what we've been going with.
Thank you. Any further questions? Excuse me. Can I ask if we can just have a 5-minute break before we move this report? Thank you. Thank you. Apologies for that. I'm just going to move the report. Just quickly check my messages, make sure there's nothing else there. Right, happy to remove the report. This report seeks your approval for the annual update on the delivery of the local heat and energy efficiency strategy and the local area energy plan. Over the past year, we have made significant progress towards our LHEAS and LEAP targets, ensuring alignment with national objectives. To drive this forward, we have established internal and external strategic coordination groups, enabling the delivery plan to advance swiftly. Our work has made a real difference to residents across Perth and Kinross, with 1,788 households received free energy advice. 108 homes were retrofitted to improve energy efficiency. Through our contract with Scarf, £3,360 in fuel debt was eradicated. As a result of the advice provided, residents collectively saved an estimated £51,660 over the year. Strategically, we have completed the Perth City Centre Heat Network feasibility and commercial modelling study. This will serve as a key anchor project within our wider pipeline of energy efficiencies initiatives and will inform the procurement process for establishing a strategic energy partnership. Under the Scalable Cities programme, which promotes community energy generation, we have developed a community investment framework. This framework enables communities to work with the council to create their own smart local energy systems. The project was officially launched at our energy event in the council chambers here on the 20th of September. We recognise that the long-term benefits of these efforts will be felt by our residents and our businesses and communities going forward. Looking ahead, the priorities identified in this report for the next 12 months reflect our shared ambition. By adopting a whole energy system approach, we will ensure these priorities complement each other, they add value, avoid duplication, and make the best use of our resources. Finally, I want to acknowledge the commitment and dedication of everyone who's contributed to our progress over the past year. We remain committed to working with residents, businesses, communities and stakeholders to ensure successful delivery in the year ahead. And just a thanks to Stuart McLaren and Davindi and the rest of the, Grant Keys and the rest of the team throughout the council for all the work they've put into this. And I know it's a lot wider than just a handful of people, but there's a huge amount of effort goes in across the board with this. Can I ask Councillor Liz Barrett to second this report?
Thank you, Convener. I'm happy to second the report and add my thanks to everyone who's been involved in the progress and achievements in here. Thank you.
Do members have any comments on the report? You.
Just a very brief comment. It's like almost like reading our Bible. You've got so many abbreviations and the heading for this report. No wonder Grant's having to wait another year for a report to come out. People to try and tag him as who's who in it. I think it was a way of reducing that number of. We're almost running out of letters in the alphabet to make up the abbreviations. It's absolutely hopeless, the number of things you've got, and it's only going to get worse rather than better, and we'll wait 2 years for the report possibly.
Thank you. Councillor Grant Lane.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to yours. I know that it's a massive task across a whole range of things, and probably I'm impatient. That's why I was wanting to focus on some. But I know that the work that everybody's doing within this team, and it's new technology, and technology is moving forward quite quickly. So I don't know if we need to put more resource into it, and whether it's the best, it'll be up to officers and others to decide if it's best to outsource it to consultants or to bring more people into the team. But this is where we have to focus our aims moving forward. But I'd like to thank for all the work, and I look forward to seeing it come to fruition in the next couple of years. So thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you, Grant. Ken.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. I'd actually just like to say I thought I'd write a lot of these kind of reports myself, and I thought it was very easily readable, considering it's a complex, difficult thing to kind of get across to kind of normal people like ourselves. So I thought it was very well written and very well able to understood. So I would also back up the comment I made earlier. Obviously, you're aware that you need more team members, you need people with more expertise. So I would encourage you to continue down that path. But thanks very much for the report.
Thanks, Ken. No more comments. Can we agree? Can we agree to move this report? Thank you. Stuart, thank you. Thanks very much for that. Appreciated. Right, Irini is going to introduce this Public Bodies Climate Change Duties Compliance Reporting for 2025 on carbon emissions. Irini, over to you.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning. The report is an overview of the Council's statutory annual Public Bodies Climate Change Reporting Duty submission. It provides an update on the Council's carbon footprint and emission trends for the reporting year 2024-25 financial year and wider actions the Council is taking to address the climate emergency. Overall, the Council's carbon footprint decreased by approximately 16% compared to 23-24. This reduction is largely due to changes in waste processing, with smaller reductions in emissions from energy produced on site and business travel. Key facts about the improvements made that have led to emissions reductions across all areas reported on have been highlighted throughout the report. The statutory report also includes a section about adaptation and mainly about assessing and managing climate risk. Information on the Council's climate change risk and opportunity assessment has been provided, as well as key actions the Council is taking to address climate risks. Next, the governance section requires the Council to explain its climate change governance procedures and outline our related plans and policies. Key information in line with the reporting requirements has been provided here, with emphasis on a climate change assessment toolkit score, which has increased to 75% this year. Following that, the procurement section outlines the ways in which procurement policies such as the Council Sustainable Procurement Policy and Sustainable Procurement Strategy have contributed to compliance with the climate change duties. Lastly, the top 5 priorities for the Council for 2025-26 have been reported as required for both the climate governance and adaptation reporting areas, respectively. These have been taken from the top and high priority actions within the Council's Climate Change Action Plan and have been highlighted for approval. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Andrew.
Thanks, Raj. This is a very complicated topic and difficult to get one's head round, but I'm at table 1, and if you like, the direction of travel in terms of the total footprint looks very good compared with 10 years ago. But one figure that caught my attention was, if you like, the halving of the Scope 3 footprint between 22-23 and 23-24, and then a considerable further decrease in the last year, 24-25. Can that be explained in a bit more detail by answer to my question? Because it seems, if you like, gradual process is understandable. That seems incredibly fast process, and there must be specific reasons for it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, so for our Scope 3 emissions, we report a number of emission sources. The main one is waste. So the main reduction, and that significant amount of reduction you've noted correctly, is the reason that we have massively reduced the amount of waste that ends up to landfill compared to the previous years. So since August 2023, waste has been diverted away from landfill to an energy from waste site. That results to emissions from incineration. However, compared to the emissions that would arise as a result of landfill, they are largely significant. So we're looking correctly at a very large reduction. So 2024-25 was the first full year that we are reporting on with waste being diverted away from landfill, and that explains the main reduction. We also have further reductions on our transport, but the main reduction is waste.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Ken.
Thank you, convener. Again, a very excellent report. It's easy to read and understand as well. I've got a few probably technical questions, which I'll probably dig out from the report. I won't ask you here. The question I did have was again on table 1, like Deputy Provost Parrott asked about. There's a few changes over the years, and that's obviously in the way you measure things, and I understand perfectly how that happens. Do you predict there'll be more changes in that, or do you think you're all getting to a settled point with that? No, I can judge by your.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, this is actually great timing for this, because we do expect there will be changes in the upcoming year. So recently, the Scottish Government ran a consultation on the public body statutory duties, and this is because they are starting to incorporate additional measures for reporting in line with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol for greenhouse gas emissions reporting. So the changes are likely to come into effect over the next 2 reporting years. This is because an amendment order, needs to take place since these duties are set in the legislation. So the main additions are with regards to Scope 3 emissions. So there are a number of categories that we currently do not report on, and by saying we, I mean local authorities and public bodies across Scotland. For example, emissions arising from staff travel and staff commuting for staff travelling to and from work is not something that is widely reported on across Scotland. However, we have been reporting on this over the last couple or 3 years. My memory, I think this is the 3rd year we're reporting on this. Another area that is likely to come into effect is emissions arising from purchased goods and services from our contracts. So yeah, we're expecting to see those changes over the next couple of years. Apart from that, there haven't been any other discussions about additional categories in terms of Scope 1 and 2. We are reporting on all areas within the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. So yes, to summarize, Scope 3 additions are incoming.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks. Any further questions? I will go ahead and move the report. This report seeks our approval for the annual Perth and Kinross public sector climate change duty reporting. We have a duty to report annually on our carbon emissions to comply with our climate change duties under the Climate Change Scotland Act 2009 and relevant legislation. The submission of the report to the Scottish Government fulfils that duty. This year's report shows that our carbon footprint has decreased by approximately 16% compared to last year, now standing at just under 24,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent. This significant reduction is largely due to the improvement in waste management, energy efficiency across our estate, and changes in fleet operations. Notably, the introduction of hydrotreated vegetable oil in our heavy goods vehicles has delivered substantial emission savings, and our continued investment in electric vehicles and greener pool cars making a positive impact. Our waste management efforts have resulted in a 61% reduction in landfill waste. With the new Twin Streams recycling programme increasing plastics recycling by the same margin, these achievements demonstrate our commitment to diverting waste from landfill and improving recycling rates across Perth and Kinross. Our climate change assessment tool score has risen to 74%, reflecting improvements in adaptation, emissions reporting, and mainstream climate change across the council operations. We have established a regional adaptation partnership, Climate Ready Tayside, and continue to strengthen our governance and procurement practices to support our net zero ambitions. Looking ahead, the report identifies our top 5 priorities in both climate governance and adaptation for the coming year. These include developing and implementing scour protection on bridges and landslip risk screening for key assets, continuing delivery of flood risk management projects, identify and developing nature networks, and implementing ash dieback screening and removal. Also supporting community resilience groups. For governance, our focus will be on mainstreaming climate change in committee procedures, rolling out carbon literacy training, embedding whole life costing in decisions, building procurement capacity, and supporting the relaunch of the Perth and Kinross Climate Commission as SHIFT. In conclusion, while we celebrate the progress made in reducing emissions and in improving sustainability, We recognise that further action is needed to accelerate our efforts and achieve our climate targets. We commend the dedication of all the teams involved and urge continued commitment as we move forward. And a special thanks to Irini as well with the work she does behind the scene with this. And as I'm sure you'll tell by her answer, she understands our subject pretty well in that accountancy with the carbon stuff. So thanks very much for that. Can I ask Councillor Liz Barrett to second the report?
Thank you, Convener. I'd like to add my thanks to everyone in Perth and Kinross, both in the council and residents who've contributed to the significant reduction in our carbon footprint, and I'm happy to second the report.
Do members have any comments on the report? Grant Lane.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate the comments that you made, and you covered a plethora of things that we're doing fantastically well, and you can really see a difference in different services working together to, you know, from education to the schools that they're building to obviously the waste disposal teams, etc., and even the vehicles they're using. So I just think everybody, when the council comes together and all the services work together, we can make a massive difference. And I think a very important point as well from Councillor Barrett about the residents as well, who've really bought into the recycling and the twin stream way that we collect waste, and it's even noticed in the places where the waste sorted that the Perthshire residents can sort their waste into their bins in a more superior way than other areas. So I think everybody working together, when we're sitting looking at the typhoons and flooding and all the weather events that are happening across the world, and we're sitting here in Perth probably not in typical November weather, and it's a lot wetter than normal. I think we realise that we all have to do a little bit, and I think that everybody within the council is doing a great job of moving things forward. So I'd like to just pass my thanks on to everybody for the work that they are doing.
Agreed. Thanks, Grant. David.
Thank you. I welcome the reduction in the council's total footprint, but given that 23,500 tonnes of carbon dioxide output represents about 48 seconds of the total output from the Republic of China, I remain pessimistic that we will ever have any impact on total climate change as a council.
Thank you. Keep doing what we can do that sits in our control. Unfortunately, we can't control other places, but we will lead by example, and that's part of our commitment as a council, to lead by example. Take that on. Any further?
Just looking at 411, the report, I find it odd that high water user sites such as Perth Museum, I'm trying to remember what that was, just going to the loo, might be the usage there. And Bell Sports Centre's been closed for some time, except for toilet use as well. I'm just wondering why.
Is this a comment? Is this comment section?
It's a comment on the report, yeah.
No, you have to make the comment.
Who?
What's your comment?
Well, I find why these things being included. High water usage site is what the class has. And just the toilets in the museum, there's no magic water flow or sprays or things being used in that area.
Right. I think comments noted. I think if officers want to come back later and answer that. Thank you. Andrew.
Thank you, Arch. I just wonder whether Councillor Illingworth has noted that for every one person there is in Perth and Kinross, there are nearly 9,000 in China. Thanks.
Thank you. If there is no amendment, can I ask if we can agree the recommendations in the report? Can I pass on for the final paper to Councillor Liz Barrett. Irini Davindi, thank you very much for that. Cheers.
Thank you, convener. Our next paper is the Flood Risk Management Scotland Act 2009 publication of our Cycle 2 interim report, and I'd like to ask Russell Stewart, Senior Engineer in the flooding team, to introduce the report and deliver a slide-based presentation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, hopefully you can all hear me. I'm going to provide a little 15-minute presentation on the Flood Act and the requirements to publish an interim report. We'll then go on and show a few slides to summarise progress of the flood risk management actions as summarised in the committee report. So if it's possible to put the presentation up, please. Sorry, too quick. And on to the next slide, thanks. The Council's duties with regards to flooding are set out within the Flood Risk Management Scotland Act 2009. Section 34 of the Act requires local flood risk management plans to be published every 6 years. The current cycle, which runs from 2022 to 2028, was published in December 2022. Then the report numbers on the screen there. Section 37 of the Act requires a midway review of the actions in the local flood risk management plans, and this is due in December 2025, so next month. And this is the subject of today's committee report. Section 38 of the Act requires an end-of-cycle assessment of all actions in the local flood risk management plans, which are due in December 2028. This actually coincides with the publication of the Cycle 3 actions, which runs from 2028 to 2034. Next slide, please. So what is a flood risk management plan? Well, Scotland is split into 14 local plan districts, as shown in the top right diagram. A local flood risk management plan is required for each district and is prepared by a lead local authority. Perth and Kinross Council participate in 4 local plan districts due to our council boundary overlapping into these other areas. So the 4 areas we are involved in is number 8, the Tay, which we are the lead local authority for. Number 7, Tay Estuary and Montrose Basin. Number 9, the Forth, and number 10, the Forth Estuary. So within each district or plan, there are general actions that apply across the board, e.g. awareness raising, emergency plans, and land use planning. As you can see on the bottom right slide, there are areas marked brown within a district. SEPA carried out a national flood risk assessment to identify areas at highest risk of flooding across Scotland. These areas are known as potentially vulnerable areas, or PVAs. Within the PVAs are target areas with specific objectives and actions. So an objective would be to better understand flood risk from a particular water course, with the corresponding action being to carry out a flood study. So coming back to the original question, what is a flood risk management plan? They set out short and long-term actions to be implemented by responsible authorities and partners during the cycle period, and this period being cycle 2. They provide details as to who will be responsible for implementing the actions, a timetable of when actions will be delivered, and a description of the coordination and funding arrangements. So since the publication of Cycle 2 Flood Risk Management Plan in December 22, in general, good progress has been made over the initial 3 years of the second cycle, despite the significant response and resources required to support communities during the flood events in October 23, May 24 and July 25. Next slide, please. As lead local authority for the Tay district, we are required to publish the Tay Local Flood Risk Management Plan next month in December 25. And a copy of the draft report is in Appendix A2 of the committee report. This slide shows all actions and the corresponding delivery leads for the Tay Local Flood Risk Management Plan. And as you can see, on the left are the delivery leads, along the top are all the actions. And you can see from that that the council are responsible for 40 of the 78 actions. Next slide, please. Some fancy graphics. The left graphics show the percentage split of actions for each of the delivery leads. So you can see 51% or 40 actions in a TAE local forest management plan are for PKC. The middle graphic shows the RAG status for all actions in the TAE local flood risk management plan. So that's red, amber, green. Green stands for actions have been delivered and or is on programme and within budget. Amber is the action is being behind programme and or over budget, but the key dates are still anticipated to be met during this cycle. And red means the action is behind programme and or over budget, with key dates unlikely to be met and or outputs unlikely to achieve what was anticipated by dates within the local flood risk management plan. The right graphic shows the RAG status of PKC only actions. So 80% or 32 actions are due to be completed in this cycle, with 20% or 8 actions delayed. Next slide, please. This graphic shows the status of all flood schemes and study actions in the TAE local flood risk management plan with their respective RAG status. I will briefly provide commentary on the red projects. Perth ICS Part 2 will take into account the outcomes of ongoing and previous studies carried out by both PKC and Scottish Water, and will be the subject of further discussion between both parties in the near future to take this project forward. Comrie is currently on site and programmed for completion in October 2026. Aberfeldy, Pitlochry and Bridgend are all Cycle 2 schemes and have been significantly affected by delays in capital funding availability, which is still the subject of an ongoing review by the Scottish Government and COSLA. Scone Flood Protection Scheme is delayed to a future cycle as a result of revised deadlines imposed by the Scottish Government with insufficient available time to meet these targets. And for those that are eagle-eyed, you'll have noticed there were 8 RAG status projects, but there are only 6 are shown on the screen. The 2 other projects relate to requirements within the Scone Flood Protection Scheme, one being that a natural flood management option should be considered, and that once the scheme is constructed, that maintenance of the scheme should be carried out. Next slide, please. This graphic shows all actions located within the PKC area for the other 3 flood risk management plans, as I mentioned earlier. They were the Forth Valley and the TAE Estuary and Montrose Basin. As you can see, PKC have 12 actions, and Scottish Water and SEPA also have actions within the PKC boundary area. I would highlight that there are other actions within the 3 flood risk management plans, but they are in other council boundary areas and for other lead local authorities or responsible authorities to deliver. Next slide, please. The left graphic shows the percentage of actions for each of the delivery leads for actions in other local flood risk management plans that are in the PKC area. So basically 70% or 12 actions are for PKC to carry out. The middle graphic shows the RAG status, red, amber, green, for all actions in the PKC area for these other plans. So 71% or 12 actions are green. The right graphic shows the RAG status for PKC only actions, where there's 67% or 8 actions are due to be completed in this cycle, with 33% or 4 actions delayed. Next slide, please. This graphic shows the status of all flood schemes and study actions and other local flood risk management plans with their respective RAG status. And I'll quickly run through the red ones. And we have Kinross, or South Kinross Flood Protection Scheme. This is delayed due to objections lodged during the publication of the scheme A local authority hearing is currently ongoing. Milnathort Surface Water Management Plan and Flood Scheme are now one combined project. They were delayed as a result of the impact of flood events, as mentioned earlier, and also due to ongoing work with Comrie and South Kinross. But we are aiming to complete by the summer 26, with consultation due soon. And finally, Blackford is a Cycle 2 scheme, and as mentioned earlier, for Pitlochry, Aberfeldy and Bridgend, has been significantly affected by delays in capital funding, which is still ongoing review by the Scottish Government and COSLA. And next slide, please. Finally, the last slide provides an overview of all actions in the Tay and other 3 local flood risk management plans, including their RAG status. So in summary, the report recommends that the committee endorses the progress made on delivering the local flood risk management plans published in December 22, as set out in the interim reports, acknowledges the content of the interim reports on the local flood risk management plans for the Tay district and the council's input to interim reports for the Forth Estuary and Tay Estuary and Montrose Basin, and approves that the strategic lead and infrastructure will carry out final minor amendments to the above interim reports if required prior to publication in December 25, and approves the proposed arrangements for the publication of the interim reports. That's the summary.
Thank you very much. Do members have any questions on the report? Councillor Harvey?
I think Councillor Illingworth's just ahead of me.
Sorry, apologies. Councillor Illingworth was first. He's come up my list for first. Councillor Illingworth.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Can I be parochial and ask about the amber status of Bridge of Owen flood study?
The amber status is just that the original programme within the local flood risk management plan had it finishing earlier than it currently is. So it's just had a slight programme delay, but it'll be finished, I think it's round about March next year we're programmed to complete that. Consultation is due later on this month into next month.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey.
Okay, thank you, Vice Convener. I got a couple of questions, probably related to each other, but just to understand, I couldn't quite get it out of the report, but you've got a variety of flood studies, a variety of flood protection. Do you rank them yourself based on a certain criteria, or does that come from SEPA? As, for example, you've got, say, one in Aberfeldy and one in Comrie. How would you decide which one gets your priority with the work? Is that something you decide, or is it SEPA, or is that a kind of combined thing? Thanks.
Yeah, so SEPA carry out a national flood risk assessment to identify the potentially vulnerable areas, and from that information we then draw up objectives, or SEPA and the council draw up objectives to target those areas and try and mitigate flood risk.
Have it follow up, please. And I assume, you know, it's all, I'm kind of hinting towards the fact that it's always, you know, everybody wants something for their kind of ward type of thing. I assume this is a purely technical aspect, a technical decision based upon the likelihood and the severity of the various things and how SEPA sees that from, and there's no interference really allowed from that perspective. Thanks.
Just going to say yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Yes, I was disappointed to see that Scoone's been put right out of the development plan as such. There was about £30,000 left to be spent on budget in Scoone to finalise the look of this, the anti-burn project and everything else. We have had a continuing problem with the barrel drain in Scoone, which the council has looked at and said nothing. Well, we're not responsible for it anyway, but I'm just disappointed that Scoone is taken out of the equation for a good number of years, but look at what's on the plan there anyway. Well, just that the people have suffered recently general major flooding down the bottom end of Scone, and the barrow drain's been on the table for as long as I've been a councillor, from the 80s. So I'd like to have seen it much higher up the priority list than it is just now, or being excluded from the priority list.
I think that's a comment rather than a question, unless you something to feedback on that. Thank you.
So we are still carrying out a surface water management plan in Scone that's looking at the barrow drain, and it's also because it's linked to the water courses, looks at the water courses as well. So it's not that we're not doing anything in Scone, it's just the flood protection scheme element is delayed, but we're still looking at surface water, which will actually overlaps into the water courses as well.
Thank you. Councillor Ling.
Thanks, Vice Convener. Yeah, thanks for the report, Russell. You know, it's really interesting to look at, and I know that you guys are inundated, which is maybe not the proper term, with cases coming forward because of the change in climate. The question was really is how often does SEPA or yourselves move the goalposts as you see more localised weather events happening in certain areas, because it seems to be a moving feast. Areas that never flooded before because of such heavy localised rainfall, and it can be in one part of Perth and Kinross and not in the other. How often does the priorities get revised, is what I was trying to ask.
Thanks, Councillor. I'll answer this one if that's okay. The simple answer is that the goalposts don't move. The prioritisation of the target areas and the studies and actions off the back of them is set on the 6-year cycle. SEPA are currently preparing for the next iteration of the National Flood Risk Assessment, which will feed into the Cycle 3 areas of interest. The work will continue. We do appreciate that influences of climate change will continue to affect communities around the PKC area while we are still working on these locations. The national prioritisation is set collaboratively, but set out by SEPA in the flood risk management plans, the national flood risk management plans. We will progress as resources allow for the studies within our area, but I do not feel that SEPA changed the goalposts, nor do we, to be honest. So we follow the tasks that are set out to us as best we can.
Okay, can just a quick follow-up, Vice Convener?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfectly understandable, and you know, you can't, when you put up such a plan in operation, obviously it'd be very difficult to change it. I was just wondering, I noticed that, you know, we do a lot of surface water management plans, but is capital the problem to actually put what comes out of that into action? The results of the plans.
The process for obtaining funding is to go through the Scottish Government. So there's an annual, well, not annual, there's an annual review in terms of the ongoing projects, but any future projects get added to a list that's prioritised, and currently there isn't enough funding to meet the demand. So yes, there's delays due to that.
Yeah, my understanding, it's a cost benefit to, you know, I think Councillor Anderson or somebody asked earlier, but it's all down to cost benefit, isn't it, Russell?
Yeah, that's right. If we don't have a cost benefit ratio greater than 1, then a scheme's not viable, so it wouldn't progress to the next stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ling. Do members have any further questions? Nope. In that case, I'll move the report. The Flood Risk Management Scotland Act 2009 aimed to introduce a more sustainable and modern approach to flood risk management in Scotland. The Act requires lead local authorities like ourselves to publish local flood risk management plans every 6 years. Perth and Kinross Council published our second Cycle 2 Tay local flood risk management plan covering the period 2022 to 2028 in December 2022. And today's interim report provides an update on the actions contained in the Tay Local Flood Risk Management Plan, as well as the other Perth and Kinross Council actions contained in the Forth Estuary and Tay Estuary and Montrose Basin Local Flood Risk Management Plans. I'd like to thank Russell Stewart and Dr. Rick Haynes and all of PKC's flooding team for the work on this report and all the work that lies behind it. As noted in the report, the Council are on target to deliver 77% of all our actions contained within the current plans, including the Cymru Flood Protection Scheme, which is currently on site and is programmed for completion in around October 2026. The remaining 23% are expected to be delayed beyond the current cycle period due to the impact on resources as a result of significant flooding across the Perth and Kinross area during October 2023, but primarily due to the ongoing Scottish Government COSLA review of capital grant funding for flood schemes, as referred to. The Flood Risk Management Working Group was set up in 2021, nearly 5 years ago, and we're still waiting for funding proposals for this current cycle too, which started in 2022. However, every effort will be made by Perth and Kinross Council to deliver the delayed actions as quickly as possible to minimise the impact on flood-affected communities. I'm happy to accept the recommendations in the report and I move the paper for approval. Can I ask the convener to second, please?
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to second, and just to add my thanks to the officers and the work that goes into progressing the active projects and progressing the projects that are in the pipeline for getting delivered within the budgets that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. Do members have any comments on the report? Councillor Ling?
I think Councillor Illingworth was before me, but on my screen, but I'm happy to go ahead. Yeah, I'd like to thank the officers for all the work they're doing on this, and because water ingress in any house is traumatic for the residents, and so I hope I'm sure they'll continue the good work, and we'll get some results as and when funding comes in. I'd like to also point out the work by the officers that have engaged with the community to set up community resilience schemes. I think if we give residents as much advice and give them the tools to do the job, they will do the best they can to protect their communities. And it's great to see the funding that the council's put in towards community resilience over the last couple of years has been well spent, and the number of community resilience groups is growing. So I think that's something that we as a local authority can be proud of, and our officers have been especially good with engaging with the communities to help them when situations arise. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ling. Completely agree with you on the work done by our community resilience teams. Sorry, Councillor Illingworth, I think I got mixed up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Yeah, I welcome the report and the efforts of the flood team. I would much rather we focus far more on flood prevention, where we can have an impact on the people's lives and people in Perth and Kinross, than on climate change, where we have no realistic impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Illingworth. Councillor Harvey?
Yes, thanks, Vice Convener. I just want to, it's almost like a broken record, but it's a very good report, and it's good to see that you're on top of this, which is, as Councillor Illingworth pointed out, is a very important thing within the council area. So just continue the good work, and the report again was readable and quite easy to understand from my perspective, which is very good. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. If there are no further comments on the report, I would ask if we can agree the recommendations in the report. Thank you. Pass back to the convener to close the meeting.
Thank you. Thanks everybody. Thanks for the contributions and to all the officers as well for their contribution, and hope you all have a good afternoon. That's the meeting finished.